Well, welcome back to the work week and welcome back to the really big show. We've been off for a couple of days. We took Friday off and Monday obviously is a holiday. But Ian and I are ready to go. Ian Burns in Ottawa, myself, Jim Check here in Kelowna. And the big headline today, Carney touring Canada amidst trade turmoil, and he's actually in Kelowna. We're trying to figure out where. We've communicated 3 times now with their communications, and they're not really telling us where they are.
And it's exactly what they did. I'm sorry to notice patterns, but precisely what they did when Justin Trudeau came to town not so long ago.
We had to get that information from one of the councillors to tell us that because they would not tell us. But they apologized after, like saying, oh, well, we just didn't see the email. I think that was phone calls and emails. And is it the same thing here this time? Like, why won't they tell us where they are? Anyway.
Well, it's peculiar, isn't it? Because you have to go there. Then you have to speak to somebody, usually like one of his press people will usually want to have a chat with you to tell you various expectations and whatnot. Then you need to set up your camera. You need to sort of find the place. You drive out there. It's like there's quite a lot. Yeah. It takes quite a lot of time to arrange. So they leave it to the last minute.
Yeah, the event's at 10, and here it is 9, and they won't even communicate. So, and again, not unusual. There you go. And then some of the headlines today.
I'm emailing them as we speak. I'm still trying to push this along. So we'll update you live on whether they respond.
A free and democratic press here in Canada. They resist or restrict access all the time. We're going to talk about some of that access later here. The Swiss hold emergency meeting on tariffs. Well, Parliament in Canada is still in recess. Hamas makes a horrific threat. Carney doing well with boomers. Feds cracking down on government employee tweets. NDP whining. Commons Committee wants the records. Posties say no to the offer. Healthcare in BC just gets worse and worse and worse. And all that and a lot more on the really big show. We got lots to talk about. Big weekend, beautiful weekend here in the Okanagan. How are things there in the nation's capital?
It's been very smoky, actually, from the prairies, fires in the prairies. But it's all right, I suppose. Kind of sort of mid-20s.
There you go. We're going to kick it off here with this is the Swiss. The Trump hit Switzerland with a 39% tariff. They're panicking, I guess, and their government is holding an emergency meeting. And here we are in Canada, still on recess. They decided to go on vacation. What were they in? They hadn't been in Parliament for how long? Forever, it seemed like, when Trudeau prorogued it. Did the election and then went back to work for what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? And then
was that work? Was that really work? They were spending a lot of time introducing themselves, weren't they, and getting new jobs, being excited about the new arrangement.
Back on holidays. Carney is touring around Canada. He was in Vancouver yesterday there, and took part in the Pride parade there. And here he's supposed to be here in Kelowna here, or West Kelowna, somewhere. We don't know where.
Well,
if anybody knows in the comments, they can let us know.
Yeah, well, I've just got word from the newsroom that they think that it's Gorman Brothers, but this is based on another outlet's reporting, presumably an outlet that the Prime Minister's office speaks to. Now, you might want to ask yourself, do you think that you live in a healthy democracy if that's the case? The Prime Minister's office tells one news outlet where they're going and not another one, despite this is now, I'm going to send my 4th communication in a minute now. Still no response. Do you think you live in a democracy? That's today's question.
Yeah, it's actually very troubling. And then I'm not going to play this clip because it was pretty bad, but I'm sure you've seen it. There was this clip, there was an interview there with the leader of the Hamas there, and says that they will repeat that October 7th massacre time and time again, 1 million times, if they need to end that occupation in Gaza. Crazy. And that was after, they did say they also appreciated the recognition by Canada and a few other countries there too, and did say, see, it's working. We did get recognition. So.
Well, yeah, and then they came out and said that, didn't they, about just a few days after Britain, France, and Canada made their announcements, they made a little announcement where they said something along the lines of, "We're not going to disarm, we're not going to surrender until, we have recognition, I think, from Israel or something like that." So it's just kind of adding their voices to what our good friends have said.
According to the National Post opinion piece here, Carney is still doing really well with the boomers, but not so much with everybody else. The people that are still having to pay their bills, buy groceries, rent, all that kind of stuff. But the boomers still holding up for him.
Yep, and by a huge margin. Yeah. But it's quite interesting. I mean, it's nothing. This article is quite interesting. I read it earlier, independently of it being here in this document. It's called Tristan Hopper, I believe. This chap. He is quite an interesting fella. But it's nothing new to us, because we were following this from 3 years ago when Poilievre first became leader. We saw it start to change, and we talked about it regularly, didn't we? How young people started to back Poilievre, and then you start to get this inversion where the right-wing party was backed by the young and the supposedly left-wing party was backed by the old. But he kind of lays it all out in quite an attractive format there, and it really hammers it home. And you just look at things like, if you just take the Trump issue out of the equation, you get a conservative government, basically. Or even if, as we discussed as well, the school kids did their little ballot, didn't they? And they elected a minority, it's like a mock ballot, and they elected a minority conservative government. It's very interesting to look at it. Yeah,
it's completely flipped, where it used to be, the older people that went with conservatives, and the younger people were definitely more liberal-minded. But I think the affordability crisis and the path forward, they're looking into the future and they're seeing that this it doesn't look good. And the liberals, the old boomers, just want things to stay as they are.
Well, it's it's pretty much the reason that, why did Gregor Robertson say right off the bat as soon as he was in the door, why did he say, "Oh no, we're not going to bring house prices down"? Like, you can, if you want to have a sort of cartoonish answer to that question, you can say, "Oh, because it's the evil liberals" or whatever. That's not really the reason, is it? I mean, there are lots of rational reasons not to do that based on how the economy works. But the most rational reason is that most people in Canada are homeowners. Therefore, most people that vote are homeowners. You give the people that vote what they want if you want to stay in power. And that's pretty much the situation that we're in. The sad thing is that people in power seem incapable of doing the right thing and recognizing that the generation that's followed them, or people who are not like them, let's say, are in a very, very desperate situation when it comes to housing, and that they need something, they need help. That's the sad element to it, isn't it? It's easy to explain along sort of like the lines of realpolitik why this would be the case, isn't it? It's just, why wouldn't you do the right thing? But in a sense there, this is, and we've talked about this a lot of the time, where it's like Poilievre almost was a bit too principled, wasn't he? He sort of leaned into his principles too much, and he didn't look at the sort of the raw electoral calculus and try and accommodate himself to that. So I guess the Liberals would say, if you want to be in power, this is the kind of thing you got to do.
The feds are cracking down on employees that are saying things on X, that vulgar things as well. So the lawyer at Finance Canada is the first Fed employee to hide comments on X under the new TBS Canada policy prohibiting vulgar and partisan social media posts. Timothy Hoyer tweeted 9 to 10 times in a typical workday, including ridicule of legislatures. And some of the tweets, as you can see that one there. And the nice thing about being government is able to introduce laws that allow you to F up without anybody being able to sue you. There you go. Right?
I mean, I suppose, I don't think that's a good example, because that could easily just be interpreted as funny, couldn't it? Like, as an attempt at humor. I wouldn't say that's not automatically evil, malicious commentary, is it? But I suppose it does kind of bring the department into disrepute, or whatever they said.
Yeah, Hoyer is listed in the federal directory as an expert advisor in the Finance Department's Legal Services branch. He posted numerous messages ridiculing conservative legislature And he said, Mr. Poilievre's private sector work experience is very thin. Read one post on the leader of the opposition. I fear the style of politician that Poilievre represents is increasingly becoming celebrated rather than shunned, said another. And then some of his stuff there, yeah, I don't know, like some of his stuff, you can probably go find him on the end. Well, he probably took most of it down already, right?
There he's smart, yeah.
It's amazing. We're paying federal employees very well to watch Netflix and then obviously post vulgar things criticizing the Conservatives on X. Money well spent, I guess. Eh? Money well spent. And the NDP's whining. The NDP, New Democrat Gord Johns there of Carney, Alberta, complained of an affront to democracy, of always the affront to democracy after being sidelined at a Commons Committee hearing. They said they're not official party status. So the other party signaled they had no interest in making concessions for the New Democrats if they were reduced to 7 seats. And he doesn't like that because he doesn't get to ask questions in those committee hearings because they are not listed as an official party and they also don't get to vote in those meetings.
I mean, I was watching that live at the time when he said this, and it was at the beginning of the hearing. It was with Chrystia Freeland. And at first I thought, I was listening to Dan Albus and the rest of them, and I was kind of, that's a little bit churlish, isn't it, lads? Why don't you just give him a couple of minutes kind of thing, just because he's from that area, he represents that area. But then, then Dan Albus was like, well, I've got so many questions. Like, you can't take it out of my time. And it did seem almost a little sort of selfish, let's say, and a little bit ungenerous. But then when I watched the whole thing, Dan Albus, who is the opposition transport critic, he didn't have really very much time at all. Like, it was very, very... Because you have to bear in mind that Chrystia Freeland refuses to answer any questions anyway.
No,
and when she does, in the process of refusing to answer the questions, she drags the time out. So... it's kind of like it's like trying to question a hostile witness. If it was a court of law, she would be told by the judge to behave herself. But obviously, because there are no rules in politics, really, she just does that. And then, Dan Albus gets increasingly frustrated and he's trying new angles to ask questions. So you can understand, therefore, when you watch the whole thing, you can understand why he did that. But it does also seem... it seems to me maybe they should have these. They should be longer, these sessions. I think, especially something as important as this.
They should be until we get the answers. We're going to talk about it a little bit later here, but we'll come back to it. But another one here from Blacklocks. It's a good service to subscribe, just like $300 a year. Well worth your, because they go out and get all those FOIs and they get all this information that embarrasses the government. And well, it should too, because that's what's holding power accountable. Federal prison system with 20,000 staff has more employees than inmates now. We talked about this a while ago too, right? And this follows finding by correctional investigators that Canada spends $3.9 billion and has one of the costliest prison systems in the world. Another first for Canada that you don't want to be first in. The costliest prison system in the world.
It's astonishing, isn't it? I mean, I would like to look at the hard data there, because usually it's the American prison system that's the most expensive, but then they do try and profit from it, don't they? They introduce private prisons and things like that. They introduce the private sector,
where the judge actually owns shares in it, and he's the one sending you to the prison. He's his own revenue driver. There's more than 20,000 employees for 14,837 inmates in 43 federal penitentiaries. And there's 17 parolees on community release. And that's a big budget, $3.9 billion, right?
It is, and that kind of like, when you look at this from the perspective of the federal government, or the party in control of the federal government, maybe it becomes a bit rational, or more rational at least, to try and not send people to prison very often. Because then you can have more money to play around with other things rather than having to spend it all on prisons.
So there's only 16,382 cells available in Canada, so it's almost full, right? That leaves about 1,545, and that's probably the reason why there's not a lot of people. We watch all these stories about, these crimes being committed, and the judge just sets them free. So, I mean, there's not a lot of room left there to actually put people in prison as well.
Yeah, it's, again, and I say this a lot, don't know why, what good it does really, but this is something going on in other countries. It's definitely not unique to Canada, but it is a disaster nonetheless, isn't it? To not have space to put the most dangerous people in your society away to protect everybody else. That is particularly dangerous. You'd think that would be a priority of any government, wouldn't you?
You would think so. Yeah, there you go. And then we got a little clip here to play from Sam Cooper. He's a journalist here in British Columbia. We're going to talk about this BC Ferries deal a bit. He has some light to shine on. Let's play this little clip here from Sam Cooper talking about BC Ferries.
Very unfortunately, the worst of us that have sold out to get where they are too often in power in Canada. And to what you're saying, yeah, I do think that some very smart people around the world are realizing, you know, you couldn't make it up in Hollywood that someone like Premier David Eby and BC Ferries are giving a $1 billion ferry deal funded under the table by an Ottawa bank, basically, a development bank. It's an old story that we've covered in many ways, but just to get to the point, people like David Eby now are a very strong national security risk to North America. There's no way to sugarcoat this from the way that he's giving away. And I know you come from a First Nations background, and I'm very, very, very...
Rommel, yeah, there you go, because he's getting into something else there now. And then here's Dan Albus. We talked about that committee vote that he's part of. The Commons Transport Committee, by a 5-4 vote, has summoned all confidential records detailing the $1.1 billion in federal financing to buy the Chinese-made vessels in BC. And he said, we can stop this loan. And that's Dan Elvis. He's our MP here in Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna, BC. He's a sponsor of that motion. And getting answers from Chrystia Freeland was like obviously a filibuster for her. And she just burns the time by just saying nonsense over and over and over again. You go watch it and you're just, you don't get much out of it, right? So I guess the only way to get it is to get the documents.
Yeah, I mean, she pushed, but Dan Albus is a very, very mild-mannered man, isn't he? A very calm chap. I imagine it is really quite hard to push him over the edge. But if you watch that, she succeeds. I think he loses it a bit in his last question, which is almost like more of a statement, really. You can see that he's just furious. And I clipped that on our X page if you want to go and have a look at it. But yeah, I can't imagine that she as well, Chrystia Freeland, is particularly delighted about this situation, because she used to be a journalist, so she knows all about this, and she's experienced it from the other side. And I'm sure journalists get extremely angry, and I'm sure she's thrown the odd biro across the room from time to time when she's been treated like that by politicians when she was a journalist. But now she's doing the same thing, and it's, at the end of the day, what is it like? This is our theme, isn't it? If we have a theme, it's this. It degrades the public's faith in our institutions. It's extraordinarily dangerous, extraordinarily damaging to Canadian democracy. And people that engage in it, like Chrystia Freeland, I think, are behaving in an extraordinarily stupid way, and they'll come to regret it.
And I watched the comments from that CEO too, Jimenez or whatever, him saying, one of the factors, he named a bunch of factors, of course, blah, 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 but cost is one of them. But how do Canadian companies compete with China when China can use slave labor, has tons of human rights violations, uses inferior steel, and doesn't have an industrial carbon tax? Those are all the big things that go into the production of a ferry. Those three ingredients are the biggest cost. And if we can't compete on those, how are we supposed to compete when you're saying one of your criteria to select is cost?
Well, obviously, because we can say that we produce low emissions something or other.
something or another. Yeah, something or another.
Low emissions and equity or something. That'll work, I'm sure.
Then they award it to China, and then instead of the Liberals being absolutely mad about it, and this is one of the things we're trying to get to this Mark Carney event here in Kelowna here, and that's one of the questions we want to ask, is because we haven't heard him make a statement on it, have we? As to why, if at this time Canada needs to utilize Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and jobs first, build Canada strong, why they're continuing to allow this funding to go towards a Chinese shipbuilder.
Well, Mark Carney has not responded to it. I don't. Well, I kind of do blame Mark Carney there, but the people that I blame more than anybody are the press, because Canada's press has a habit of being worse than worthless sometimes. I'm sorry to say about my brethren in the trade. Sometimes they're just completely on another planet and they don't ask things that are important, and they haven't asked him that question. But obviously he should still have just volunteered to speak about it anyway, shouldn't he? Because it's an enormous national issue. Well, why wouldn't you? Because it's embarrassing and he doesn't want to have to do anything about it.
I mean,
but then he was in Vancouver, wasn't he, on the NIMO? And he was reported to have said by the Canadian press, the agency, the Canadian press, that he sort of looked through his binoculars and he saw a ferry and he said, "I see a ferry over there, but it's not Chinese made." So instead of actually addressing one of the most serious scandals in Canadian politics right now, he just made a joke, and he just sort of, so people that care about it, he basically just stuck his finger about them and laughed at them, and the press giggled and no questions were asked about it.
The compliant government-funded media says nothing while this is going on. And again, it's Canadian taxpayer dollars that are doing this, that are funneling money and jobs to an overseas, and what Carney even himself has said, China is the biggest threat to Canada.
Indeed. But, you know, not to repeat myself, but I think the biggest threat to Canada and Canadian institutions is irresponsible people in positions of power within those institutions. And I include the press in that, as well as politicians. That's what will destroy Canadian institutions ultimately, not the Chinese Communist Party. I don't think they're going to succeed in that.
Any luck on finding out where our Prime Minister is yet? Our next story here is he's going to be
I'm going to send email number 5 or 6, actually, maybe, is this?
Mark Carney is in West Kelowna to visit a wood manufacturer, so I'm guessing maybe that's Gorman's. And he's going to tour that wood product manufacturing facility. That's a weird name for a sawmill, if that's what it is, if it's Gorman's. He toured a Canadian Forces facility on Vancouver Island on Monday and attended the Pride Festival on the weekend. Yeah, so he's touring, but you can't find out where he is. Carney met with Eby on. You'd think that, I wonder what that conversation was, if anybody could have been in the room. See, with Trump, when they say all these negative things, Trump would have let the media in that room with that meeting. With
Probably,
Eby
but then he would have proceeded to humiliate his underlings. I don't know if it would have been much better, but at least there would have been cameras in there. Yeah.
I mean, we get nothing, right? And then we can expect.
I'm still looking. I still have faith, the residual scrap of faith in the decency of the most senior bureaucrats in the federal government.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But a couple of our senior ministers, cabinet ministers, are off to Mexico, and we can expect some good photo ops from, because guess who's going? Francois Philippe Champagne is on his way to Mexico to meet with President Claudia Sheinbaum. But he's taking Anita Anand with him, right? So the Foreign Affairs and Finance Minister expect to discuss trade and security. This was after Justin Trudeau and the Liberals mocked Mexico and their culture there just recently. Remember that?
Indeed. Yeah, and then you've got Captain Canada, who's in a bromance, a very sort of passionate bromance with Mark Carney, who repeatedly says that Mexico is this kind of it's like a back door for China, and it allows China to smuggle in all sorts of goods. And he said that many times. I'm talking about Doug Ford there, of course.
Yeah.
Quite awkward. And also, let's be honest, we've already seen Mark Carney cozied up with the European Union. He cozied up with Britain, the most pathetic, spineless country in the world at the minute, pretty much, within the sort of liberal ecosystem. And he said, we're going to work with these countries, not the Americans. Like this is like, we're going to deal with trusted partners, who then proceeded to make deals with Donald Trump and sell Canada down the river. So why would Mexico, a country that we don't have a particularly good relationship with anyway, why would they want to do business with us? It's just pie in the sky stuff, isn't it?
We're literally their competitors because, like both of us have been trying to feed the American beast there for a long time, right? I mean, both of us making products to feed that American beast. And And Mexico has actually surpassed us as the #1 trading partner for the Americans. That was just recently. In other news, though, Canadian forces drop aid into Gaza amid a humanitarian disaster. So the Canadian Armed Forces dropped close to 10,000 kilos of aid into Gaza on Monday, and that was according to the federal government. And that's so there you go. And then and Pierre Poilievre saying that he will ban the central bank digital currency here to protect your right to use cash. And that's been said in the U.S. too. The Liberals have not come out and said that. And there's even talk that it sounds like they're going to put forward a bill here in the fall here to actually create a CBDC. I know that the Europeans like that idea as well, right? Digital currency where they can track you, and a lot of people are calling it a social currency as well, where they can, if you do a bad tweet or something, they just can shut off your money supply, whereas cash is, obviously a lot tougher to cut off somebody's supply of cash because they have it in their pocket. But a CBDC, if everything was through that, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you just won't have any money to spend. We've seen that with the truckers, right? The Freedom Convoy, where they just freeze your bank account. Imagine more power with that. So a lot of Canadians worried about that. So see where that goes out. The Canada posties said they don't like that offer. So what's next?
Yeah, I mean, Canadian press here interviewed experts who, I mean, in fairness, do actually seem to be experts in this case, who are experts in sort of labour organisation. And at least one of them thinks there is, that Canada Post has a lot of options, including just kind of let the business just die and fail and then lay people off. Yeah. And just keep doing that until they can get to a position where there's a deal possible. But I don't know. I mean, the alternative is that they give them a better deal. But I mean, they've tried several improved offers, haven't they? And it comes down to quite sort of obscure points. It's not even about money anymore, is it? It's about time, really, and things and conditions, isn't it? More than just cash.
So the Labour Minister, Patty Hadju, says that maybe they'll impose some back-to-work legislation on the Canadian Union of Postal Workers for the third time in 14 years. The government is monitoring the situation closely and expects the parties to reach a resolution as soon as possible. That was from Hadju. She said Canadians expect the parties to return to the bargaining table and secure an agreement. So we shall see. The post office hasn't turned a profit in 8 years. And obviously, they're competing against some of the bigger ones, UPS, FedEx, and all those other ones out there that have a lot more flexibility in what they do.
Yeah, but I mean, just like BC Ferries, which we're repeatedly told is a private company, apparently. I guess maybe we should just say that. It's just a private company, so not our problem.
And then another thing here from Pierre Poilievre. Carney promised the strongest economy in the G7. He gave us the second highest unemployment in that group. All the big promises, media hype, are colliding with reality. And the stats are not good, right? The stats overall for the Canadian economy, not good. And we're going to talk about it later as well. But if you look at this, unemployment in Canada, and in some of the sectors, especially the youth unemployment, is extremely high in the 20% mark. And then a lot of people, including some world organizations, saying this Canada's out-of-control immigration policies are basically a form of modern-day slavery and to drive down and suppress wages, and that basically at the lower end of the skill set, and that usually it goes with the summer jobs or the student jobs that would be taken by summer students, and that has been taken by the massive immigration here in Canada, putting the unemployment rate in the 20-plus range for Canadian youth.
Yeah, and this is, again, to use the word dangerous, this is a very dangerous thing to do with your society, as we've seen many, many times throughout history.
There's many people in organizations, like world organizations, and I can't remember the name of the organization right now, it slips my mind, you probably know it, that has said that what Canada has done is not much different than a modern-day slavery, importing cheap labor into Canada, and then a lot of them being abused. We saw the case, there's so many fines being levied by the Canadian government too. There's that one case there in Fox Creek where they, like the people were working like 100 hours a week and not getting paid and all kinds of things.
Indeed, yeah.
And then here's a stat that a lot of people are saying is being fed to us, that our poll is saying that people would love to join the European Union. And then you talked about it, like the European Union is as big as a mess as Canada. They've had the same ridiculous policies that are no energy policies that have basically impoverished their nations. And UK is dealing with that. They've had open immigration. I mean, we're seeing the same thing in France. We're seeing the same thing in the UK. The immigration policies are destroying their labor markets, and also their anti-energy policies have made everything so expensive. Like, you just went back to England, and you said you had to choose when you were going to turn your heat on.
Absolutely. But it's so much worse than that. Frankly, it's so much more unjust. It's not just that they've completely failed to manage the country to the extent that sort of middle class people, professionals, can't warm their homes. It's not just that. They've also created this bizarre situation where if you have alcoholism, you can be given basically a free new car, or ADHD, various ailments or whatever that you wouldn't think would be associated with having a new car given to you. But they have a scheme called Motability, which does exactly that. Then there's the people that just arrive on dinghies and they're given meals and health checks and all the rest of it. The whole country is dysfunctional. And
yeah, but if you're a regular citizen,
a small privileged group that gets preferential treatment, not all of whom are citizens.
If you're a regular citizen, you can sit in your home and freeze. You have to determine what hours of the day you're going to have heat and how many layers you can put on to stay warm. And you were just there, and that's why you're back in Canada. And Carney seems to want to follow the footsteps of this EU and the UK on these anti-energy policies.
And yet, they're not reciprocating really very much, are they? The Europeans or the British, they don't seem to be bothered. It's very much an unrequited love affair, isn't it?
Yeah, somebody wrote in the comments there, hopefully we don't get strong arm and arrested by the Marxist Carney goons for asking real questions. Yeah, I mean, like the last time Trudeau was here, we had to sneak in, or like they wouldn't tell us where it was. We got it from a counselor. We got in there and we got to ask a question of Justin Trudeau that he just rambled on for 5 minutes and talked about, like he filibustered as well. But at least we got to ask the question, I guess.
Yeah, and it was classic Trudeau. He went on for a good few minutes. Very colourful, lots of adjectives that he possibly had just learned that week. But no, what the important thing about that is, yeah, they did it that time, but we still got in anyway. So if it was a conspiracy to keep us out, then they're not very good. They're not very competent. And then we got in and completely dominated the press conference. And then Canadian Press, which usually, the only agency in Canada really, usually writes a story every time the Prime Minister does anything, basically. Yeah. Their story was just what we asked, So that's kind of that might seem like an obscure point, but that's kind of annoying because they didn't want us to be there. And yet the reason that story was written, the whole angle of that story, so in other words, the best and most interesting thing to come out of that news conference was because we were there, even though they didn't want us to be there. So it's just kind of, what does that tell you? Again, I have to ask rhetorically to the good audience, do you think you live in a democracy? Have a good ponder on that.
So the questions that we have if we get there, is where's Mark Carney's statement on the BC ferry deal? And the other one is, when will you repeal Bill C-18, stop funding media and allow media to be free?
Yep. Well, we've certainly the question that I've put to one of the reporters there to ask about C-18 is, how come it's okay for you to spend millions of dollars of our money on your Facebook posts, but we, as the media of Canada, whose job it is to scrutinise you, can't post anything on Facebook? How is that? How is that reasonable, Mr. Carney, my lord?
Ridiculous. This one here put up by Sherry Denovo. Prediction: Canada, together with the European Union, will emerge as the new global superpower as the USA self-isolates and descends into a new dark age. I don't know what she's smoking, but she might be at one of those all-you-can-smoke pot shops there.
Is it even worth responding to that? Who is she? Who is this woman? And can I have some of her psilocybin?
And then the Montreal Pride chair resigns amid backlash for barring. I'm sure you saw that, where she said that Jewish people weren't allowed to march in the LGBTQ2+ parade.
Terrible.
And then, and then obviously there was a video out there as well as where the Palestinian protests actually blocked and I didn't put it in here, but it blocked the, actually I do have it in here if you want to play a small clip where they're blocking the Pride parade.
March with us. We didn't stop you from marching at our parade, but you're blocking us from our parade. We never stopped you from participating, but you're blocking us now. Shame on all of you.
Say the word
that
solidarity,
is not solidarity.
but then you don't.
You're just showing your bullying.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
An increasingly common sight, though, isn't it? This kind of very sad and chaotic dysfunction that we see, even like within ideologies as well. Very anarchic period that we're entering.
And then we have this one's a little bit longer, but it's a really good thing to play because there's a lot of talk about Alberta separatism, and a lot of people, some of the left-leaning media, trying to accuse Poilievre of actually promoting it. But here's a good answer from Pierre Poilievre, and a good question actually from one of the potential voters there in Alberta there. So let's play this clip here from Pierre Poilievre.
What would you say to someone like me who is a young family and seeing more hope in the idea of the landlocked Western Canada than a never-ending Liberal government? The Liberal government owns the media, they run the universities, they have no shame or integrity. It feels like the game is rigged and that the East will always decide their fate. Why should Alberta and Saskatchewan stay?
That's a fair question. A very fair question. I frankly understand the frustration that people feel. The Liberals in Ottawa have told the West to pay up and shut up. They've attacked Alberta and Saskatchewan's biggest industries of agriculture, oil and gas, to name a few. And they have transferred massive wealth out of this region. So all of those concerns are legitimate. The question is, how do we deal with it? I believe the answer is in building alliances with like-minded Canadians across the country. So for example, Alberta and Saskatchewan should lock arms with Newfoundland, which wants to repeal C-69 so that it can double its oil production. Newfoundland got off equalization by producing offshore oil. Now they want to do gas. We should lock arms with them to do that. You have the First Nations communities along with the British Columbia coast that want to build at least a half dozen LNG liquefaction plants to take Alberta's gas, liquefy it, put it on a ship, send it off to 2.5 billion customers in Asia, and get $14 for a million metric British thermal units instead of $3. That would bring home tens of billions of dollars of wealth for our people across the oil and gas regions of this country. We should team up with the people in the Greater Toronto area who want to see a massive crackdown on crime by toughening up the criminal justice system, because they're seeing the chaos in their streets. We should build alliances with, and you might be surprised to hear me say this, Quebec wants to have a smaller, weaker federal government so that they can have more autonomy over their provincial decisions. We should team up with them and say every province, including Alberta and Saskatchewan, should have more autonomy by having less power concentrated in Ottawa. Now you might say that sounds great, but when is it ever going to happen? Well, it did happen. I described the nightmare that that happened under the Pierre Elliott Trudeau period. But a few years later, we got a conservative government that brought in free trade with the United States, which was a massive boon for the prairies, by the way. We got rid of the National Energy Program, privatized or got rid of about 25 different federal government agencies and bodies, reduced the size of the federal government in relative terms by roughly half. And in the period following 1984...
You can go watch that full clip there, but yeah.
Yeah, not very impassioned defense really of Confederation, I would say. But there you are. He's trying to win in a seat where there are lots of people upset with it, aren't they? And not so sure about if they want to continue in this relationship.
So our reporter Steve McNall is just going to head out to Gorman's and hope that's it, because obviously nobody's told us where it's at yet.
Well, if anyone's interested in this continued drama, I've now, because they have a phone number, but you phone it up and it says, send it to the email, which I've sent to now about 8 times with no response.
Right? Catch-22, it's that loop, right?
So what I've now done is, last time they did this, the way that I eventually had a conversation with one of them is because another journalist gave me a direct line to the head of communications, and I just phoned him. And he sort of very embarrassed and very confused said, "Oh, I don't know, I'll get one of my people to give you a call." And then she phoned me up, was 12, and didn't know what she was talking about. But what I've taken to doing now is I'm on LinkedIn, Bill Gates' favorite website, and I'm just finding them and guessing their emails and sending them emails now. That's literally what it's come to. And I have to say, obviously, I'm from England. I've worked in England, a country that I'm happy to look down on from my Canadian ivory tower from time to time. But this would never, ever, ever happen in England. Never in 1,000 years. And if it did, it would be a gigantic scandal. And yet here it is, for the second time, happening to us here. And I almost wonder, is it because nobody cares? I feel like that might be the reason. I'm not sure how seriously Canadians actually take their democracy. You tell me.
Yeah, we have the most experienced newsroom here in Kelowna. And this Liberal government has definitely not a fan of us, obviously, because we don't toe the line, I guess, or what? We don't know what the response is. They don't like free and independent press because we don't have to answer to them. And speaking of somebody that answered, here's Andrew Coyne of the Globe and Mail. He put out a tweet there. If you've harbored the slightest doubt that Trump is installing dictatorship, this should dispel it, because he fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics after weaker than expected job figures. And if you go read a bunch of Andrew's tweets, he spends more time bashing America than he does on ever criticizing the Liberal government. And Ray Dalio actually came out, and Ray Dalio is one of the bigger hedge fund managers in the U.S. and said that, this guy probably should have been fired a long time ago, or lady should have been fired a long time ago for, during the Biden administration too, they put out those very glowing job numbers, about 900,000 jobs, and after the election, then they revised it down to none. And so this is not the first time that they've revised these numbers. And but the point is that Bill C-18 continues to suppress media's right to freedom, and also they've selectively decided to fund some outlets while they still spend millions of dollars on Facebook themselves. But it definitely curtails a lot of our reach, and we had the biggest social media reach here in the Valley that we earned through serving our community, and yet it's taken away. And here's the Justice Center. I've interviewed John Carpay several times, and the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, there's an article in the Globe and Mail that he retweeted that says, this is all to do with this Sean Foyt. He says in the article that the Globe and Mail does get it right. Freedom of expression doesn't exist to protect popular opinions. The Charter protects everyone's right to speak. And this has been something that the Liberals and the NDP have just, it's been their kind of MO. They shut things down, and then the next day, there's just that expectation. It kind of goes with it, right? Like a few people chime in and they want it shut down, they don't like it, and then all of a sudden, the city or the municipality comes up with a reason that it's unsafe to have these events in their communities.
Yeah, it's always easy to find some sort of obscure reason not to do something. Obviously, every event that you go to and enjoy, there'll be a reason somewhere hidden in the fine print to cancel it, won't there? It's easy peasy stuff, that. And
this one belongs in the Are You Serious section. This is CTV talking about how Russia reigns in the internet by blocking websites and isolating it from the rest of the world. Russia. Is that comedy? So the Liberal government basically blocks news outlets across Canada from putting stuff on Meta. Right?
Oh, this is a democracy, Jim.
And then,
yeah.
and then also selectively funding certain media. not telling us where this press conference is going to be, not telling us, an outlet here in Canada, not telling us where it is. And
it's, by the way, it's going to start in 14 minutes. So if we'd just been sat there dutifully waiting for a response, we wouldn't be able to get to West Kelowna. It's going to take about half an hour to get there from the office.
If anybody wants to take odds on the response that they're going to give it to us after the press conference, it's going to be something like, "Oh, well, we didn't see your email." The five.
That's
of them,
what they
six
said last time. Yeah, but this time, I've literally emailed everybody I can find. I've emailed Tim Krupa, who ran it as a young sprite, ran for the Liberal Party 2019, I think that was, wasn't it, in Kelowna? Who's now got some huge job with Mark Carney. I've emailed him. I've emailed the director of communications at the PMO. I've emailed everyone that exists here.
This should be a huge scandal, and the other media outlets should be raising their voices about this as well. But again, I guarantee it's going to be crickets.
Indeed. And Ian here asks about the British media, saying, what have they done to help in Britain? Nothing. They've done nothing. They've made it worse, if anything. But that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is in Britain, transparency, let's call it that, the relationship with the media, is way too strong for something like this to happen. I used to work for the British government, briefly, for the British government in a press department. I've said this many times. If an email came in, didn't matter who it came in from. If it came in from hyderabadtoday.com or something like that, and they asked a really stupid, weird question, and it was left there for 20 minutes in the inbox and nobody replied to it, there would be hell to pay. That's the attitude in Britain. That is how the British government operates. They respond to your emails and they consider that to be their job because that is their job. Whereas in Canada, the media people, who are paid, by the way, 3-4 times the salaries of what they're paid in Britain, and fancy themselves to be great professionals and all the rest of it, rather than just servants sat at a computer, it seems to me, in my experience, I would say 2/3 of the time, they just won't respond. Yeah, and you have to keep asking them questions again and again and again and again. And then maybe they'll say, oh, sorry, Ian, okay, here you go. That might seem like an obscure thing. And this is kind of behind closed doors. We're like opening the doors for you here to see what it's actually like for the media. And it is a bit abstract. But that tells you that the culture here is diseased when it comes to the media and transparency. It's completely toxic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had that same interaction with, we asked for an interview with the finance minister of BC here, Brenda Bailey. And when she was in town, they said they were going to look at it, and then they decided, no, they didn't want to do it. And I said, well, anytime then, just, well, we'd love to do an interview. And then they just kind of ghosted us. So I sent an email to Brenda Bailey directly and a bunch of their people, CC'd a bunch of them. And then I got a call right away from her chief of staff, and we had about a 30-minute conversation. And I said in there, it's ridiculous. You can't get a response from the NDP or the Liberals. And I said, you guys criticize Trump all the time, and you say, oh, what a terrible thing is anti-democratic. Yet he holds press conferences in meetings. Like I said, that one meeting with Eby and Carney, he would have let the press in there. He does it all the time. He has like 3-4 press conferences. And here's one here. Here's another example. He's actually on the roof of the White House looking at the renovations and taking questions from the press. Like, they're shouting at him and he's answering. And he goes to the airplane.
Like the Beatles' last concert there, isn't it? Last performance.
when he's walking down the press, like, I mean, there's in the U.S., there's, to be fair, there's, like, we have like 4 or 5. At this event here, there'll be like 5 or 6 reporters from 5 or 6 outlets. And then they decided to selectively decide who gets to come and not get to come.
Yeah, and also, come on, the questions, Mark Carney already knows what the questions are going to be. It's always the same thing. Yeah. There'll probably be one on Palestine. Yeah. There'll be one, they know how it'll be worded. It's not going to be unpredictable in any way. Whereas we'll go and we'll probably ask a question that they can't predict. And that's something that communications people, press people, despise. I know that because I was one. Except where I worked in Britain, they were not so arrogant and draconian as to just not respond to emails to people that might come and ask a dodgy question that you don't want to answer.
I say this over and over and over again, and you go on my LinkedIn and you can read it. Freedom of the press is paramount to democracy, and that is access, and they don't provide access. Again, Trump in the lineup. Like he'll walk down the lineup, and there'll be like 150 reporters in the lineup, and he'll just walk down the lineup taking questions. And I said to the chief of staff for Brendan Bailey, I said, I don't even care, like, you know, because sometimes he'll call out reporters and say they're shit or whatever. I said, I don't care if you call us that. Just answer the question. Take the question and answer the question. I don't care if you degrade us, do whatever you want to do. But the questions are not being asked for our sake. The questions are being asked for the Canadian people. And you're refusing to answer to the Canadian people.
I would say as well, obviously a lot of people are going to be like rolling their eyes and saying, oh, Donald Trump, for God's sake. But I would say the reason that it's important to mention Trump here is because he is the figure that is looked upon by our political elite and our media elite in this country. He's looked upon as anti-democratic.
Exactly.
And is beyond the pale, authoritarian or borderline authoritarian. And I think the point that Jim's maybe trying to make here is, look how open and transparent he is. He'll answer a question from his worst enemy, like CNN or whatever. He answers questions from everybody, even people. There's a few memes on the internet. People that aren't actually really capable of speaking English, they still get to ask a question of Donald Trump in the White House. Can you imagine the same thing in Canada? Just take a look at the media ecosystem in this country. Have a look at the attitude to scrutiny from those in power in this country, and ask yourself if you think that's healthy and if that's conducive to democracy. Because the contrast is very stark indeed with the United States. You know, you think what you want about the rest of America's failings or Trump's failings. He's very, very open with the press.
Yeah, that Andrew Coyne, again, the Globe and Mail guy that's on CBC all the time, says that Trump is installing a dictatorship, yet he takes questions all the time. And here in Canada, how long has Parliament sat this year? In the last 365 days, how many documents have they released in all the scandals? Do we have the documents from Stephen Guilbeault's alleged scandal of funneling money? Do we have those? That was one of the reasons they prorogued government. Do we have a budget? Do we answer questions? Do they go on more foreign press, friendly press, than they do answer questions to independent press here in Canada? It's absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert gets time, doesn't he? He gets time to chat to our politicians. Well, not so much journalists, though.
And who's wearing a Stephen Colbert T-shirt? Justin Trudeau just recently. There you go. That says it all. And here's one with CNN is actually starting to change their tune a bit with Trump as well. Let's going to play this clip here from CNN.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this. It's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of the larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this, how is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh, my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century. And to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year. And we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind.
Busy boy.
Here's some more. Trump is signing an executive order. This is happening in Canada right now too. We've seen this with Eva Chipwick, the lawyer for the Freedom Convoy, getting debanked by the Royal Bank of Canada. And here, this happened in the United States. We're going to play a small clip here, and this is they're publishing or an executive order fighting back against debanking, and Trump himself was threatened to be debanked.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that you're prepping an order that they say would punish banks that discriminate against conservatives, including potentially Bank of America. I'm going to be actually talking to Brian Moynihan here later today. Can you tell us about that executive order? What's in that? And what do you think the banks have done?
Well, they did discriminate. I had J.P. Morgan Chase. I had hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. I could see if they want to, if they want to do something bad because you don't have any money and you're defaulted and they took people out. But I'll give you me as an example. I had hundreds of millions. I had many, many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with cash, and they told me, "I'm sorry, sir, we can't have you. You have 20 days to get out."
You know, that's another thing. He was on Squawk Box. He took interviews with several of the guys on Squawk Box today, including Joe. And he takes questions. And then this is happening here in Canada. This is happening here in Canada. I've heard it from a few people. The one that's more public is the Eva Chipuk one, where they actually said, I think she had 20 days to remove her banking. She's a Freedom Convoy lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, that was astonishing when I read that. Yeah.
And then Chrystia Freeland, under the advice of Mark Carney, was the one that they froze those bank accounts. They know that cutting off, this is why CBDCs are dangerous to many people. Cutting off your money supply is basically cutting off your ability to survive. Can't buy food, can't pay rent, can't pay your mortgage, can't pay anything. So debanking people,
well, and it's not like that's discretionary, is it? You can't live would be a brief way of putting it.
And so they weaponized. So they debanked his wife too, Melania Trump, at the when he lost the 2020 election. Nasty. Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you saw it or we talked about it, because we haven't done a show since Wednesday of last week, and Kamala Harris put out a book. I don't. Did you see her? Did you see? So she was on Colbert.
We did see it.
107 days. So here's a small clip. We're going to play a small clip, and it says that there is a punishment worse than death, and that's having to read this book. Go ahead and play the small clip.
Your fantasy football league. You got an interesting punishment for losing. Watch this.
If you finish in last place in your fantasy football league this year, you will be locked in a room with no phone until you finish reading every single page of Kamala Harris's new book. And when you finish all 500 pages, you will be required to give the entire...
There you go. And then it goes on to say you have to read it. And if you don't do a good job of it, then you're going to have to listen to the audiobook.
But yeah, it's like a lot of these books, you have to kind of wonder, like, are they even written to sell? Like, are they written for people to buy them? Sometimes I feel like they're not. Like, maybe it's just to get things on the record or something, but I can't imagine people rushing to the bookstores to get hold of that. Nobody, not even the most diehard Democrat, was very fond of Kamala Harris, I would say.
And you and I have talked about this many times. The NDP and Liberal policies are the policies of 10 years ago, and they just don't know it yet. And I think it will catch up to them, that this virtue signaling, identity politics. And those are Chrystia Freeland's own words, friend of the show. Chrystia Freeland said that the Trudeau Liberals spent 10 years, wasted 10 years on identity politics and virtue signaling. And here's something in Oklahoma now. They're going to require all incoming teachers pass an America First test, proving they know the Constitution, understand American exceptionalism, and can define a boy and a girl. No woke brainwashing in their schools. They're going to play a small clip of this.
All right, so for anybody who's got teachers in their family in Oklahoma, this is a story you'll probably want to listen to, because there are teachers that are relocating there from progressive states who will now be evaluated on the America First agenda. Oklahoma, as a state now, is going to require new teachers pass an America First test to keep their license. They're going to have knowledge of the U.S. Constitution, an understanding of American exceptionalism, a grasp of fundamental biological differences between boys and girls.
I bet you that there's going to be a huge uproar over this, because teachers are going to say they don't need to take a test. And just like, you're allowed to give tests, but you don't want to take a test. Seems odd.
I mean, this could backfire as well, because I would say the teacher class, by and large, they go off to university, get their degrees where they learn things like about the evil of the United States and all the rest of it. and then they come and join the professions, probably the lowest rank of the professions, of the elite, if you want to put it that way. They're very unlikely as a group, as a whole, to want to go along with this, aren't they? So they could end up with a shortage of teachers, but I don't know, maybe they'll get them from California or something like that, people that don't want to live there.
Harman, this is going to, in our BC news now. We're going to move on to BC news, and this ER problem is getting worse, and now it's hitting some of the lower mainland hospitals. So Harman Bangu, MLA, Conservative MLA, put this out. He's a hard at work kind of guy too. And reminder that I have Renee Merrifield on at noon today. Renee Merrifield, former MLA for the BC Liberals here, and it will be during a regular weekly show. But he said Sunday night the ER at Mission Memorial had no doctors. At 5 p.m. patients were turned away. Nurses did what they could, but anyone in crisis was told to leave. And that's and then also Delta ER shuts down on BC Day. Mission was shut down. Oliver shut down. And we've seen it, and also in the Interior Health, we had a shutdown as well. That's the Oliver one, right?
Yeah, and also 100 Mile House right now, I believe, is down. Yeah, I mean, it's just constant, isn't it, frankly? But it's sad to say, but the weird one is the Lower Mainland, isn't it? And that's the one that's likely to get people's attention. That's
going to get people's attention. Right? It's the same thing as KGH when they closed the pediatric ward. That gets attention because, you know, people are just like, oh, 100 Mile House in Lillooet. How many times closures for Lillooet this year? You're basically better off to call first and see if it's open. It's so bad.
I'll just probably assume that it isn't, I would say, if you can't get through. But it's terrible, isn't it? And I think maybe it is starting to really break through now into the sort of large population centres. They're starting to realise how serious this is.
We're going to try and pick up a little bit of speed here, and I'm going to go through some of this stuff. But our reporter down there in Penticton got some pictures of the snowbirds. They let us come to the event. Hey, the snowbirds. So the snowbirds were there rehearsing yesterday. So they're actually going to put on a show if you like the snowbirds and you live in the Okanagan Valley here. They'll be there Wednesday for the Penticton Peach Festival. If you've never been to the Penticton Peach Festival, it's a great place to go. And there's some beach, the beach down there, Skaha and Okanagan Lake has some of the nice beaches. There's lots going on. I'm pretty sure there was like Elvis impersonators. They have a car show, I think, as well. Also,
can't go wrong with Elvis, can you?
No. Yeah. Elvis has left.
I'm just an update, by the way. I told you about Tim Krupa, who is now. He is now the director of policy or something like that, directly to Mark Carney. He's one of the most senior people in the administrative state, even though he's just a young lad. Anyway, he's the one. I've asked so many people, communications, press, the PMO's email. He's the one that's responded to my email, and it's at 3 minutes past 10. Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? Well, he's given me the contact of the press secretary. But why didn't the PMO do that? Why has it taken somebody who writes policy for Mark Carney to tell me that? It's just. Yeah. I mean, good on him. He's done it.
A day late and a buck short.
He's actually answered an email.
Hey, a day late and a buck short, and just like, wow, yeah, you missed this one because Carney comes to town every.
We get a visit to the Okanagan by Prime Minister. I would say probably once every 2 years. That's about how it feels, isn't it?
And then they don't tell. You'd think they would put out a press because they know we respond. We ask all calls. How many emails have you sent to Guilbeault so far?
God, I don't know. That's another one I need to do. Yeah, probably several, more than 4 or 5, I would say.
How many responses have you got?
I did actually get a response, and the response was from a press officer who said, "Sorry, Ian, we're still just getting set up now. So 3 months in." Or whatever, and she said we might be able to figure something out for August. Here we are in August. We'll see, eh?
The Glacier Media sold the Merritt Herald to Indigenous groups, and now it's 100% Indigenous owned. So that's a paper, like I think Glacier Media. They also own Castnet here in the Valley. Sold that paper. I mean, papers are being sold into, There you go. I just thought I'd mention that. But let's move on to markets. We're trying to get through some of this stuff quickly. Markets relatively flat. They're up. Everything's at all-time highs. But one of the things I wanted to point out is Denison. Denison Mines. It's we pull up that chart there on Denison, which is Saskatchewan. They got some Saskatchewan properties there, and they just they're not quite a producer yet, but Saskatchewan is the world's second largest uranium producer, and Cameco is a big part of that. Remains destination for choice of mining investment, and Saskatchewan really strong in uranium. And obviously, AI is a massive, massive, massive consumer of energy, something that Canada has abundance of, but also has policies that kind of like suppress it. So, and then one of the companies that is a big in the AI, I thought I want to highlight this too, is Palantir. And we pull this chart up of Palantir. The thing is a rocket ship. Alex Karp does not mince words. Alex Karp, also, when the stock was languishing $20, they were trying to get him canceled. They were trying to get him fired from Palantir because they didn't like his views because he was a conservative and a supporter of Trump. So they were trying to can him. Now, most of the militaries in the world are begging to have Palantir software. And here's a little clip here from Alex Karp, and you can see why he's a very abrasive man.
I love burning the short sellers. Like, almost nothing makes a human happier than taking the lines of cocaine and away from these short sellers who are going short on a truly great American company, not just. I love burning.
There you go. So that's Alex Karp. He doesn't mince words for sure. And Palantir up huge on some of the results. Palantir up another like 6.6% this morning at $171. Up about $10, and they grew their U.S. revenues. Their U.S. revenues up 68% year over year, 17% quarter over quarter. It's just crazy the amount of revenue growth on this thing. And they sell software, so the margins are huge.
It's been so famous for what seems like quite a long time to me. I cannot believe it was under $10 not that long ago. Why was it so undervalued?
Well, it wasn't selling a lot, right? They were creating, they were building, and all of a sudden AI just took off. And it's just crazy. Palantir, we talk about it all the time here on this show. Palantir, if you're into AI companies, Palantir has to be one that you're watching or in your basket. Bank of Canada offers no lifeboats for drowning mortgagers. And then, it says, like these future rate cuts might show up or not at all. And this is, again, Tiff Macklin still has his job here in Canada. And again, this after he told Canadians to go out and get that mortgage, not to worry about. They're going to not raise interest rates into the foreseeable future, then raise them in unprecedented fashion, 19-fold. And now many mortgage holders in Canada are in deep, deep trouble. Here, and then here's a clip here just to kind of give you an idea what the Liberal government and Tiff Macklin were saying back then. Let's play a clip here from Justin. He's got his Ian Burns haircut going on there.
Regardless of what that figure is exactly, future governments are going to have to carry that debt. The servicing costs on that are going to be very high.
Sorry?
The servicing costs on the debt that you're going to have to carry, that you're adding to now, right?
Interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn.
Okay, but it's still a lot of money.
No.
It's still a lot of money.
No.
And you don't know where. Okay, but how are you going to pay for that?
He never did answer the question, by the way. But of course he didn't.
That hurts. That physically hurts. I can't hear that kind of thing. Especially when you think, the best thing to do would be listen to that and then look at a little timeline of interest rates.
There you go. And then here's Sydney Sweeney, the girl that has lit the Liberal left on fire, and then there's so much they made this ad so successful. Sydney Sweeney. And here's Trump actually now talking about Sydney Sweeney. This girl became famous, and now there's videos of her shooting guns and fixing cars and all kinds of stuff. So, and then here's American Eagle's stock price going up too. There you go. You can see it coming out of the toilet there. And guess who's put out some jean ads right now to kind of compete with the left? Beyonce has got some jean ads out, so we'll see what happens with the Beyonce ads. See if they're similar.
Yeah, maybe 20 years too late, Beyonce. Sorry to say, but interesting that Donald Trump can't spell Sydney Sweeney's name right, though.
Yeah, well, I
thought he had loads of little servants that wrote his tweets.
Yeah, I don't think Trump actually writes his own tweets. I've actually seen videos of where he kind of approves them. They're sitting in the room and they're doing it for him, right?
Yeah.
And this thing dropped this weekend, and it is absolutely crazy good. Like, and this is there's an Imagine thing in Grok now, and it's just, I've been playing with it this weekend. I think, you know, like this is a game changer. And if you haven't tried it out, if you go onto Grok, download the app on your phone, and then there's a little button called Imagine. And you say whatever it is you want to. This one obviously is a flaming horse, and then you click it, and then you can turn it into a video, and you can do spicy, and you can do a bunch of different things. But like, it's so fast and gives you so many different things. It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, you have to try it. It just shows you how fast. And then Elon Musk has said that they're updating Grok every couple of days. So we're going to, like I said, this thing, when you and I have been doing the show for a while now, and this is really important for people to listen to, the time is compressing for every iteration. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because the software itself is writing its own code. It's absolutely writing its own code. And so vision-based learning, all that kind of stuff, like, it's here, and you can be like some of the Canadians and the Europeans, and you want to regulate it. Well, China, we're going to talk about it later. We'll talk. Well, I'll come back to it. But XAI too, or X, is now the #1 news app in 126 countries. But the Liberals, and there's been talk about that they want to limit X, just like, you know, countries like China. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to have X. X is, you know, to me, the best news app out there as well. Like, I mean, there's no better place to get news than X.
Maybe best and worst.
Yeah, for sure.
At the same time.
And then in technology, solar. Energy is huge. And this is the adoption rate of energy. And solar is by far the fastest adoption out there. And then if you look at on the right side of that chart, that's the cost curve of solar going down. So solar adoption in energy generated, and then also the cost curve. So solar is, you know, solar and battery is likely the future. But in the meantime, we need to use our oil and gas and LNG and coal and all that stuff to build a better future, like the Chinese are doing, like the Americans are doing. And we're, you know, us virtue signaling is not going to help us other into poverty. But Mark Zuckerberg says wear AI glasses or fall behind. So that's Zuckerberg. Obviously, he sells those Meta glasses and Ray-Ban glasses and all that kind of stuff. So I think in the future, if you don't have glasses that have AI or some way to interact with AI, then you're probably going to be at a pretty significant cognitive disadvantage compared to other people. And that is likely true.
Well, I think even nowadays, if you're not using AI to kind of, even just to do like research and things like that, you're going to be going a lot slower. I suppose the argument right now might be, yeah, but it would be higher quality if you did it by yourself. But it still feels like there's a difference. There's a dichotomy emerging now.
There is no doubt about it. Like, I use it all the time, and the amount and the accuracy and the wealth of information that you get in seconds, in bloody seconds, right? And then the creation of video and photography right now. Like, I was a photographer. I mean, that's kind of how I started out, right? Like, photography was my thing. Tough gig now, right? Like, you can take a photo of myself, and then I can put it in, you know, I can change it. I can do whatever I want to it. It's just crazy. And get this, China proposes UN-style global AI governance body. You know who's going to buy into that? Canada. Say, oh yeah, China, you can trust the Chinese. So we should have they've likely proposed all the carbon emissions taxes, but they don't have one. And they'll probably propose that everybody follows these guidelines. Well, they don't.
I mean, who's taking the Chinese Communist Party at face value these days? You know, they've proved themselves time and time again. You don't even have to leave the borders of China in your research, you know, and you'll learn that they're not particularly trustworthy, our communist friends.
There you go. And then in our health section here, this is so important. We've seen this with the stories that we've been doing. ER departments being shut down all over British Columbia here. If you don't take your own health seriously and you're going to rely on the healthcare system, you're going to be in trouble. And a lot of these things that they're talking about, like, people have longer lifespans. I think I watched a piece on RFK Jr. talking about how Indonesia has like increased the lifespan of their citizens by, I think it was like 10 years and 12 years for the males and females. And it really had to do with like not eating processed foods. And here's one of the artificial dyes, seed oils, and ultra processed foods are destroying your health. And you know, like that. And I've stopped myself. So I love McDonald's French fries, but I've stopped eating them. And then also, you know, like I would like a pizza pizzas, and I just, you know, like cutting back on all those things. And your health is so important. Absolutely important. So stop putting garbage into your body. That's the thing. Anyway, the markets are, we talked about the markets. The markets are pretty much flat, but they're near all-time highs. Gold is, you know, hovering in that range of the 3382, 3400 mark, and it's up a little bit this morning. You know, nothing much going on there. Again, it is the summer doldrums kind of going on right now. Bitcoin at 113, you know, still hanging on that 100,000 mark very, very solidly. Canadian dollar, you know, again, hanging in there too, 72 cents. And in oil, oil is going to be basically flat as well, off 65 cents or $65 on the West Texas Intermediate. And Western Canadian Select, again, selling at a discount of $53.94. And then here's our Are You Serious section. I'm going to get through it here. And sometimes it just puts fun stuff in here. And this here's what, a bear on the side of the road in Vancouver Island playing with a balloon. Let's play this little clip.
That's cool. He's playing with it.
There you go.
He's not rushing off to work, is he? He's not rushing off to an appointment. He's got time to play with the balloons in the middle of the road.
And I didn't put in the video for this because, you know, like our favorite dancer, that, you know, she's the dancer that our leading mayor in the largest city in Canada. Do we have the video? No, we don't have the video. Our mayor, Chow, there, she's dancing up a storm as usual. How did she get elected? Was there a dance off or something? Have a dance competition?
Have you been to Toronto lately? That'll answer your question in about 10 minutes.
And then this one here is, I believe that the what's that? We do have the video? Oh, let's play the video because this is worth watching. There you go. That's good. I swear I've seen, how many videos of her have you seen dancing? Like that's
every time I see her, she's dancing.
Dancing on
she's
the deck.
Not as good as what's her name though? Diana Fox Carney. She's obviously the premier dancer.
So obviously that's one of the tells. If they're a good dancer, then it's probably you shouldn't vote for that stuff. But hey,
Trump can dance though, can't he? That's very different politics.
And then this one here is Canada's energy policies by the Liberal government, brought to you by. I think AOC had the same one, didn't she? It's an endless loop of energy.
Shame you can't write Canadians accurately, though. I don't know what that apostrophe is doing there, Marky boy.
There you go. That's it. That's the show. Hopefully we made it to that event and see if we got to ask a question, if we get to ask a question, or if we even get to go in. Or if we're just like...
Maybe they'll be there with the bayonets.
I think we just get to look from the outside, right? This is shameful. This needs a lot of attention, and we should be reaching out even to the other media outlets. And how do you support this? Like, do we have a free and democratic country or not? Do we?
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, second time it's happened. That's where I draw the line, I suppose. First time, maybe I would have been inclined to have believed a little bit, at least, some of their little fibs. But it's hard to do it when it happens twice.
The Liberals are always, and including the liberal media, always saying that Donald Trump is a dictatorship and that he is like, you know, all these things. Media have access to him 2-3 times a day.
Well, I would say, many of the things he's accused of, he is as well. He is indeed a lot of those things.
Sure.
But if you want to make those accusations and you want them to stick, because you only make those accusations because you want it, by default, you want the respect to bounce back to you kind of thing, don't you? If you want to play that game, try not discrediting yourself constantly by being opaque, refusing to be clear with the people, and trying to obstruct the press. Then you can look at Trump and call him whatever you want to call him, and maybe people will actually listen.
Well, here's a good example for Canadians to watch right now. Here we have the federal government and the BC government embroiled in this BC ferries scandal, which I say is the biggest scandal of the BC NDP. Will they release that information, or they've asked for the documents? Will it come to them all redacted? And why would you have to redact a document, a contract between, because there's no national security risk. And if there was a national security risk, it should have never went there in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Like what reason could they have to redact anything in that contract? Anything.
Yeah, well, you don't have to see how they would justify it, I guess. But it's a worthwhile question.
Anyway, that's the show for today. We'll be back tomorrow. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you for subscribe. Help us get the word out there, because obviously the government continues to suppress our ability to reach our audience that we earned serving this community for over a decade. So we're trying to grow audience in other channels here. So thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government.